Welcome friends, welcome back to the kitchen, welcome back to Sunday Morning and the Old Cookbook Show. Today we're going to do a recipe out of this little pamphlet put out by the Franklin Mills, the Franklin Mills Cookbook. Franklin Mills Fine Flour of the Entire Wheat, all that's good in wheat. Now Franklin Mills is based in Batavia, New York, which is just kind of that way across the lake. Kind of halfway between Buffalo and Rochester, roughly. And they produced a whole wheat flour, or what they called an entire wheat flour. And this was published in 1910. And 1910 is this interesting time period in food and government regulation in the United States. I'm going to start it with whole wheat flour, because that's as close as I can get to the Franklin flour. And to that I'm going to add salt and baking powder, and a lot of baking powder. And so 1910, the American public is just starting to become aware that a lot of their food is adulterated. And when I say adulterated, I mean that the way that it's made is kind of dodgy. You're paying for something that you're probably not getting. And there's a lot of chemical processes in the process that you probably didn't want to eat. And so in the case of wheat flour, you think that that's just, milled and it's pure and it's good. But the process of bleaching flour in this time period was pretty poisonous. And it stripped out a lot of the goodness from the flour. And even today, when you buy bleached flour, it ends up having to be enriched because the bleaching process takes out some of the nutrients, or a lot of the nutrients, depending on what you want to believe. So in this time period, the chemicals used for bleaching flour were pretty nauseous. They're poisonous. You shouldn't have been consuming them. And so the first 7 pages of this cookbook are all about how pure the Franklin whole wheat flour is, that it's not bleached, that you're getting all of the grain, you're getting all of the goodness, and none of the poison. And they also play on the fact that where they are in Batavia, they're able to, in 1910, use electricity that is produced at Niagara Falls. Pure, clean energy to run their mill. They're not burning coal, they're not burning wood, they're using electricity. And so Niagara Falls is just over my shoulder in that direction across the lake. So I've separated 2 eggs, and I'm just supposed to break up the yolks a little bit. There we go. And I'm supposed to whisk the egg whites stiff. Oh, and in case you're interested, we're making entire wheat muffins with dates, because it's been a while since we've used dates. So I've got these egg whites pretty much whisked up at this point. I need to pour a cup of milk. And so this is the time period where the US government starts to regulate food in the United States and drugs. And the Food and Drug Administration sort of is born out of this time period. Not quite in 1910. The FDA doesn't show up until I think the mid-1920s. But this is where people are starting to say, wait a second, we can't be eating adulterated food, and some of these snake oil cures that you're selling us in the marketplace are doing more harm than good. And so you really see that in these booklets. And I think I've touched on this with some of the booklets that I have for baking powder, where they really rail on how pure, the hard sell, real hard sell on how pure their products are. So I've got the flour mixed with the salt and the baking powder. I'm supposed to add in the milk gradually. So I'll start stirring that into the flour. Now there's no sugar in these muffins. The only sweetness is going to come from those dates, which I'm kind of interested in. I often find that muffins can be so overly sweet that they might as well be cupcakes. And really, when I often want a muffin for breakfast, I don't really want all the sweetness. So in goes the egg yolk next. Egg yolk and melted butter, and we'll mix that in. Now the next step is to add in the egg whites that have been beaten stiff. So I've got stiff beaten egg whites. And normally I would say you're supposed to fold these into the batter and be very careful not to overmix, because this is a muffin dough and you don't want your muffins to be all tough. This recipe runs counter to all of that. It says to beat well after I add in the egg whites. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to beat this well. I'm not really going to worry too much about losing air from the egg whites. I'm just going to get them in and I'm going to beat it well. The recipe tells me to bake these muffins in buttered gem pans. And I don't have gem pans, I have muffin tins. And muffin tins are the sort of descendant of gem pans. In this time period, a gem pan didn't refer to one particular pan. Gem pans were available in all shapes and sizes. Different shapes and sizes. They looked like gems is really what it came down to. When the baked good came out of them, they looked like gems. So there were multiple shapes, multiple sizes. Some of them were cast iron, some of them were pressed tin, some of them were pressed steel, like this is. And eventually they gave way to just muffin tins. So some people out there still have them. And if you have gem tins, let me know. That would be great. I keep telling myself I should buy some because a lot of these old cookbooks use gem tins. So I'm going to get the batter in there. It is really stiff. And then I'm supposed to cook it for 20 to 25 minutes. Doesn't give me a temperature range on the oven. Doesn't even say whether it's hot, fast, slow, or anything like that. So I'll just get these into the muffin tins and into the oven.
Hey, Glenn.
Hey, Jules.
Hey, friends. Muffins.
Well, yeah, so it's...
Which side am I on? There we go.
Are
Are those dates?
they're hard dates. There are dates in the entire wheat muffins with dates.
Okay.
So this is from the Franklin Mills cookbook. Franklin Mills of Batavia, New York, just on the other side of the... Okay, let's see.
Looks pretty good. You got the dates all kind of throughout.
They do look pretty good. Let's give it a shot.
Okay, I'm gonna try it without butter first.
What do you think?
So they're more bread-like than what we would think of as a muffin.
Yes.
It's like you took a loaf and put it into individual pieces, which is great.
It's more quick bready than sweet and muffiny, or what the current muffin. Yeah.
And I would also say that other than the date, there's not a lot of flavor to it.
Well, there's you are correct. There is no other flavor in it than the date, and there's no other sugar in it than the date.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah. So,
but I say that, well, I'd be like, I'd like to put some jam on it.
I
right?
would, yeah, some jam or butter. I would definitely put butter on it. But there's no other flavoring or sugar. So if you're someone who's watching your sugar intake and watching your fat intake, there's very little of either in this. This is actually a fairly healthy...
So it's the sugar date sugar. Sorry.
Yeah, just the date sugar. It's a fairly healthy muffin in terms of what muffins usually are in 2021.
I would say that clearly I'm hungry.
Yeah, and I'm going to put a little bit of butter on mine because I think it always needs butter. I would cut it in half, stick it in the toaster oven, and then put butter on it because that's who I am. But this is an interesting little book. There's lots of interesting recipes in there that use essentially whole wheat flour. I think this is a good base. If you don't like dates, put in cranberries.
Whatever dried fruit you want. You put a whole plethora of dried fruit in it. You could probably increase the dried fruit in there by another 30%.
I would say at least.
Without any problem. Throw in some seeds.
Yep.
You can make it completely unhealthy. Go for it.
Exactly. Or you can leave it as it is and have a fairly healthy breakfast muffin. Thanks for stopping by. See you again soon.